Listen, how many times have I got to tell you? You've got to stop defacing the place. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Minecraft The Journey with me, BugmanCX, and here we are in Minecraft Beta 1.8, the leaked pre-release version of Beta 1.8 that wasn't quite ready when it was discovered and leaked to the public. And because it wasn't quite finished, we found in the last episode that the stronghold would only generate the central staircase. And here it is, you can see it with your own eyes, and what's really interesting about this bug is that it doesn't just affect the stronghold. The stronghold is one of the new structures, and there's another structure in the game that's affected by this bug in the same way, and that is the village. And I would love to go and find a village and see what they look like in this version. But to find one of those, we're going to have to head out into the world and generate some brand new chunks. But there's more than just new villages out there. The whole world has changed. Beta 1.8 introduces a whole new terrain engine and an overhaul to the biomes, so when we do get out there, we should expect to see some brand new chunk walls as we generate new terrain. Let's talk about what sort of biome changes we should expect to find out there. In Beta 1.7, these were all of the biomes that existed. And in Beta 1.8, some of them have been removed, and some of them have been redesigned or had updates. And some biomes were actually added as well. The extreme hills and the ocean biomes were added as distinct biomes of their own, replacing the way they used to work, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we finally reach an ocean. As of Beta 1.8, some biome features like beaches and gravel beaches have been removed, but there are two new features added as well, which is rivers and ravines, so we'll need to be on the lookout for all of that. So how does this new terrain and biome generation work? Well, prior to Beta 1.8, biome placement was quite different. Layers of Perlin noise generation were used to create the biome distribution pattern, and using rainfall and temperature tables and the values assigned to each biome, the game was able to realistically place biomes based on their climate. The smoothing of the Perlin noise meant that there was a much more gradual change between biomes, and this worked out well because that way you wouldn't end up with a hot wet rainforest immediately next to a cold dry tundra without something else having to go in between. But adding new biomes to this system was too much work to maintain, so in Beta 1.8 the entire system was replaced with something simpler. From Beta 1.8 onwards, the biome placement got changed over to a fractal-based system, which was still uniquely tied to the world seed, but the result seemed more randomized. The game would now just place biomes next to each other without taking into account things like the climate. One way to help disguise this problem is by the addition of the rivers. It's not always the case, but if you look carefully, you'll notice that they often follow the biome borders, and this helps disguise the transition when you encounter a river following a biome border in-game. But although this system was less realistic, it was going to be much simpler to maintain in the code. With this new terrain generation, the biomes are now going to be bigger, but also more flat, with two main exceptions, the extreme hills and the ocean biomes. If this is a new era for terrain generation and we're going to head off and find brand new chunks, I thought it would be appropriate to start here, at World Spawn. We started out in this area in episode 10 when we first started exploring the InfDev section of Minecraft's history. We built in this area and then we head off in this direction here where we explored more InfDev era chunks and generated more terrain out that way. In late InfDev, we head off this way and set up the Alpha House and stayed out in that area for the entire duration of Alpha. And then when Beta struck, we head off in that direction over there somewhere. And over there is the Beta area lake where we've been building for the past, 50 episodes or so. Out this way is basically uncharted terrain. I have been out this way a little bit over time, but not really very far. So if you head off in this direction, you'll find a giant chunk wall, which is the boundary of the InfDev chunks in this direction. Beyond that are some chunks that have generated themselves through my own exploration, but beyond that, it's no man's land. I've never been there before. So I suppose I should get my walking boots on and start finding some new chunks. I've not come very far at all. Look at my coordinates. I've just come out 320 blocks from spawn, and I'm here at the InfDev chunk wall. Now these chunks ahead of me are not new chunks for Beta 1.8. These belong to Alpha 1.2 to Beta 1.7.3. But we'll have to head on a little bit further in order to generate new ones. I thought that while I was up here, I'd try and find my way down and see if we can have a look at this glorious wall. Just a few seconds ago, I was standing up there on that cliff looking out this way, and now I'm over here because look at this humongous wall. Of course, this is because the InfDev terrain was just so high and so beautiful. I kind of missed that terrain, but it's intersected here with this much, much lower terrain down here. But as I said before, these are still not the chunks we want, so I've got to keep on going. Well, something's telling me that I'm getting closer, and no, it's not just the addition of this grass. It's this. This over here is the sea level from a previous chunk. This chunk was probably generated during alpha or beta, and the sea level in beta 1.8 has dropped by 1 block. So wherever we see an existing body of water, it would be like this. It would be 1 block higher. So obviously this chunk here didn't exist before, and now it's been generated through my exploring, and it's butted up here right against this water. And look at that, you can see the side of the water. Doesn't it look strange though? Not really sure why the sea level has dropped by 1 block. Maybe it has something to do with the addition of the oceans, but we'll see. Right now, we need to press on. Do you see what I see? It's a swamp, a brand new, overhauled swamp, complete with swampy trees and vines and all sorts of things, and I'm keen to get down there and explore it. But before I do, there are a couple of interesting things that I noticed that I wanted to point out first. I'm standing right here on top of this chunk wall, so this means that the chunks to my left were generated in a previous version of Minecraft, and the chunks to my right were generated from beta 1.8 onwards. So how is it possible that we have a swampy, viney tree all the way up here if these chunks here were generated in a previous version of Minecraft? And I think I know the answer. You see, as the player's moving around the world, I'm generating chunks in all directions around me, and the game has a certain limit that it will generate chunks out to, and beyond that limit, it'll still generate chunks, but they'll be known as lazy chunks. And lazy chunks are basically not quite a full generation of a chunk. In other words, it generates the basic terrain shape, which is why we have the terrain up here, but it doesn't do any of the latter stages of the chunk generation, like dressing it up with trees or flowers or mushrooms and things like that. And so as these chunks out here generated, the game processed this chunk and realized that it hadn't been decorated yet, so it decorated it with a swamp tree because obviously this biome here belongs to a swamp. Isn't that fascinating? So this is a way of getting some new features in old terrain chunks that you wouldn't normally expect to be there. Heading down a little bit now, and I thought this was really interesting as well. Here you can see the old sea level and the new sea level, but this time we have water and water together. It just looks so wrong, right? And if we go up close to it, you can see that these are water source blocks, but they're flowing in this direction because that's what water would do if it had to go down 1 block. But yep, it does look very strange, and there was really no forward planning made here for people who wanted to upgrade their worlds from old versions to new versions, was there? So, a brand new swamp. What do we notice that's different about this one? Well, compared to the last swampland, I think this one's looking much more swampy. There are trees with hanging vines on them and mushrooms growing all over the place. There should even be some dead bushes around here too. The swamp's grass and leaves are quite a bright green colour too, and unlike the swamps from the alpha and beta era, there's no snow in sight. The swamp was actually the first biome from beta 1.8 to be tweeted out by Notch. After this tweet, he wrote a blog post talking about the changes made to biomes and how he got inspired to make some of the other changes that came with beta 1.8. I was putting in a few extra hours on Minecraft this weekend, refactoring code so biomes could directly decorate the terrain themselves rather than having the terrain check the biomes manually. That type of work is mostly just busy work, so it wasn't very interesting from a design perspective, but it was very rewarding from a programming perspective. Things were starting to fall into place, and biomes became much cleaner. One of the results of that was the first draft of a swamp biome, which I posted a screenshot of. I got crazy amounts of great feedback on how to make it look swampier. It kind of looks like a happy grove at the moment, and almost all of them are entirely doable by only changing the swampbiome.java class. Feels good. Let's have a little look at what we can do with these new vines. First, I want to see if we can climb the vines. Nope. Doesn't look like we can climb the vines. That's really disappointing. But I should be able to trim them with my shears. can. Look at that. I get my own vines. And I suppose I can take this home and grow it somewhere and make my own vine farm. So we might have to do that soon. But I should just be able to get several of these for now. And I believe these should all just grow back. I've just braved the nighttime because I needed some bones, because there's one thing that I need to try out. Because these swamps are abundant with mushrooms, I want to try something out with these, which is a new feature for Beta 1.8. If I place a mushroom on a block like so and then bone meal it, what? We get ourselves a giant mushroom. These things look fantastic. Now let's see what the red ones look like. Over here, we'll bone meal this one. Ooh, so this one looks like a flat toadstool, and this one looks like a little mushroomy cup shape mushroom. Yes, these things look great, don't they? And they look basically exactly the same as I know them to look in modern day Minecraft as well. Now, is it possible for us to break these blocks? If so, what do we get? No block? Nothing? Not even mushrooms? Okay. So I suppose at the moment these things are just purely decorative. Oh no, we do get mushroom drops. Fantastic. So you can use these things as a mushroom farm, I suppose. I want to move on to biome number 2 of the day, and you might have noticed it behind that tree. It's that one over there. That looks to me like the new mountains, or otherwise known as extreme hills. So I'm going to cross this lake and climb that mountain. This is called the Extreme Hills biome, and it was added in Beta 1.8 because there was a need for a mountainy range, basically. And in previous versions of the game, in fact in the older world generation, what used to happen with mountains and the oceans is that they would generate procedurally as part of the game. So every now and then, I'm not sure exactly how the code worked in that respect, but every now and then the game would create these giant mountainous regions in whatever biome it happened to exist in, and that would become a large mountain range. It wasn't its own separate biome like it is in this version. Let's climb up there. I want to have a closer look at this area from above. That was actually pretty treacherous to climb up, and you can see why. We're up quite high. In fact, it looks like the top of this Extreme Hills is at Y level 119, and up the top here it's quite flat, or maybe we can call that Y level 120. But you get some amazing views from up here. We can see some more terrain off this way, and over that way we can look back towards the swamp, which we just came from, and all sorts of other things all around us. So it really is a nice way to take in the world. One of the things I am noticing from up here is that this biome doesn't seem to have any trees, or maybe just one every now and then. That seems to be a trade-off with this biome. No trees up high. Just views, just the views. There are a lot of these floating blocks as well around the area. Probably that's just an artifact of the way that the terrain generates. You just sort of grow to accept it as part of the terrain. Off in the distance there I spy myself a desert, so I'm just going to pop over there and check it out just to see if anything looks any different. So I think we'll start by... yeah, let's do it. Has the probability of brown sheep increased? I swear it was only 3%, but we have 2 here. I'm pretty sure I saw another one over here. Yeah, there's one over there in the ocean. There's one right here. There's one right here. This is improbable. Heading into the desert now, and I am noticing a few things. One is, as we know, the biomes are a lot bigger now, so this definitely looks quite vast, although not as big as I would have expected. It looks like there's a swamp down there in the background. But I am seeing lots of these. The dead bushes seem to be everywhere across this desert, and I've also noticed this. The sugarcane is now capable of growing on sand blocks, which means that sugarcane should appear here in the desert next to these little water springs every now and then. But other than that, everything looks largely like I would expect. The desert was also one of the biomes Notch tweeted out when he was teasing the new biomes for Beta 1.8. He showed this picture which shows the desert at sunset and also the new chest, which is now slightly smaller and has the opening and closing animation. In between these two biomes, the extreme hills and the desert, we also have this meandering river. And although it isn't as amazing looking as the one that Notch tweeted out about when he was promoting Beta 1.8, it is still here, so I thought we would take a quick look at it. There's not too much to report about the river. It does share some characteristics with the ocean, but I'll wait until I find one before I go into all of that. Oceans, oceans, as far as the eye can see. Now in Minecraft The Journey, I try and cover as much as I possibly can in our survival world, but in this case I've just jumped into a quick test world because the nearest large ocean to my location was a few thousand blocks away, and in the other direction there was actually one nearby, but it was in pre-generated chunks towards the Alpha House, so I didn't want to go off in that direction and completely ruin the terrain, not just to have a quick peek at the ocean. Now these oceans in this version are absolutely humongous, and as I've mentioned before, they're now their own biome as well. But I'm going to have to swim down to the bottom to have a closer look at some of these changes. Now is it just me, or does it look like the ocean floor has a lot more terrain going on than it used to? I don't know, maybe it is something to do with the changes, who knows. There is one way we can get a closer look. Have you ever noticed that when you go into the water, sometimes you get this little flash? I can't really show you, can I? I'll see if I can get there it is. I'll see if I can get the exact right angle. And this is the level I'm talking about. It took me a little while to get my player aligned perfectly, and this is, again, only something you can do in creative mode because you have control over your player position. But my eye level is perfectly lined up with the water here. You can see it for yourself if I just go into F5 mode. And in fact, in F5 mode, if I just dip under the water here, you get a really great view of what the ocean floor terrain looks like. And again, I'm not sure if it has changed since the last version, but it definitely looks fast, and I want to get down there and have a closer look. You know what? I can barely see anything down here. Ah, that's better. There are some changes that we should take a look at. In the old oceans, before Beta 1.8, they were all just covered in dirt. You would just swim down to the bottom and it would just be boring old dirt. But have a look at this. I think I can see what looks like a sand section here, a little patch of sand, and there was another one over here as well. And these are formations known as discs, or at least this one doesn't look like one, but this one I think definitely does. You might notice that it's a kind of disc shape. It's an approximation of a circle, and at the bottom of the ocean floor you'll now find patches of dirt, sand and clay. So amazingly, we now have a brand new source of clay, and I'm excited about that. The last thing I wanted to have a look at with the oceans today was their vastness. Now this was just a random seed world that I spawned in on, and look, we're here on this island. There are no trees, or at least there are some off in the distance, but in order to get to them, I need to dive into the ocean and swim. And who knows how many other world seeds are just like this, where there are minimal resources available to you and you're just surrounded by water. But if I hop into my boat down here, we can actually go out for a little bit of a cruise and have a look around, because I just want you to take in how massive these things are. And even here in the boat, oh, I'm just an arm in a boat. Don't mind me. Even just here in a boat, I don't think you can really tell how immensely vast this ocean is. I'm going to take a look at this seed in a midst and see just how big this ocean is. Here's this random world seed that we've been exploring, and this is what blew me away. This is my player location when I just finished recording that last clip, and this is the world spawn up here. This down here is the island that we've been spawned in on and have been exploring the ocean around it. But I already saw this ocean around this island as vast and immense, and if I zoom out a little bit, you can see that the ocean itself is quite large. But what I understand about the oceans in this version is that they are a lot larger. So if I zoom out even further, you'll see that we have this ocean section through here with some islands, but everything's quite close together. But if I scroll up this way, this is what I'm talking about. Look at how big these oceans are. And in fact, this isn't even the biggest. Look up here. If we go up north of the map even further, that is just something else, isn't it? That ocean is absolutely huge. Can you imagine trying to cross that in survival? I mean, you could if you had a boat, but we're talking tens of thousands of blocks. Well, I did this so that you don't have to. This is actually a freeze frame from when I was recording amidst. I made it zoom all the way out as far as it could before it started crashing and burning, basically, and it was using about 32 gigs of memory at one point. So yeah, this was as far out as I could get it to zoom, and this is over 100,000 blocks on the east and west directions. So this gives you an idea of just how much world this is. But look at the size of those oceans. This is millions of square kilometers of ocean here, and look at it on the bottom right-hand corner. Imagine just spawning in on a tiny little island in the middle of that. I don't think it would be possible, but This just goes to show how much the world's terrain generation has changed and how much of a big impact the oceans have. And I think this perspective is really showing that fractal pattern and how much of an impact that's having on world generation. Well, it's the end of another glorious day here in our Minecraft The Journey world, and look at all of this brand new terrain that we've been able to explore today. But unfortunately for now, we have run out of time, and I'm going to have to leave it there. But it's been fun, and I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a teaser, because just over my shoulder, I found something rather special. Check it out. It's a village, and it's a totally broken village, so you will have to stay right here with me until the next episode, and we'll go over and explore that thing. But for now, I want to say thank you for watching, and an extra special thank you to my amazing patrons. If you want to check me out on Discord, please see the links below. If you want to support me on Patreon, there are links on how to do that below as well. And I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, this has been BugmanCX. You've been watching Minecraft The Journey. Bye-bye.